This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Busy morning already as we welcome you into this Thursday edition of Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network. Alongside, as always, Jonathan Von Tobel, Stormy Bonantoni with you, producer Justin Emery at the controls. We're live in downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. Lots to get to in the association, but we do have a couple MLB games in action already, which is where we're going to kick things off. Let's get to the rundown.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the rundown.
All right, already in action right now. Rays were a pretty decent-sized favorite against the Royals, and they're looking like it, of 8-0 right now in the bottom of 7. Pirates with a 3-1 lead over the Mariners.
Burying the lead a little bit here with this Rays game. The Kansas City Royals currently getting no hit at this point right now in the 7th inning.
You're not supposed to say it.
There's like a giant thing on the graphic every time they go up to bat.
Listen, I'm not broadcaster cursing this thing.
They literally mention it every time they go up to bat here at this point. So Royals getting no hit, absolutely getting no hit at this point right now are the Kansas City Royals, collectively getting no hit by the Tampa Bay Rays at this point of the game.
Also, can the Pirates hold on as a dog up 3-1 right now? They closed around plus 120. Run totals on the brink, I guess we should say, in that Rays game. It was set at 8.5. I think both of them, 8.5. We will have Chris Jimenez, former MLB catcher turned analyst for SiriusXM MLB Network Radio. He's going to join us in 30 minutes, talk through some additional games later on. And we are at the midway point of the Major League Baseball season. Excited to hear some of his thoughts on the awards markets as we go as well.
Yeah, I got to ask him, too, if this holds. I don't know, has he ever been part of a team that's been no hit? And you wonder what that mentality is like throughout a game as well, because you got to know.
Sure.
But it's also like, it's 1 in 162. Who cares? But the pride of not being part of a team that ultimately does. So we'll talk to him about that and more.
Fair question. Also, as the World Cup rolls on, 6 more games on deck today, which includes Team USA. We'll let you know the latest on U.S. star Christian Pulisic's injury as he's available to play today against Turkey, as well as how head coach Mauricio Pochettino plans to handle his lineup, given that the Americans have already sealed up the group. In addition to previewing today, how about the drama in Group A yesterday? Mexico completes the sweep, and then South Korea gets got by South Africa.
That was the one. What did you have there? Did you take a loser there? Okay, yeah. Well, it was a surprise. I mean, it was a surprising result. I thought South Korea, given the way that they have played against the Mexicans, that they were going to be in a pretty good position to at least get it done. But a tough result for South Korea, and you can't point to the box score and say, hey, man, we deserve better. Got edged out in terms of the expected goals for the most part. Possession was in their favor, but shots on goal, they lost that one too. So tough loss for South Korea. Could have gone either way. And good for the Mexicans. Let's go. Knockout stage Tuesday night. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, excited for the card that we have on deck today. A couple bets as well already in the account. But we're going to start in the NBA. As I put on the header here, well, that escalated quickly because we see the news overnight. The Hornets were seriously engaged in trade talks for LaMelo Ball. About an hour or so after I woke up this morning, the deal is done. Charlotte trading LaMelo Ball and Josh Green to the Minnesota Timberwolves. In exchange, the Hornets get Naz Reid, what year is the unprotected first round pick? Anyways, an unprotected first round pick, 3 first round pick swaps in 28, 29, and 30, and 3 second round picks as well in 29, 32, and 33 for Minnesota. You bring him in to make him Anthony Edwards' running mate in the backcourt, take some pressure off of him. And for Charlotte, you get a haul to build toward the future and clearly believing in Con Knippel.
Con Knippel, and I mean, let's relax.
And Brandon Miller.
Thank you. I was going to say,
sorry.
I know we're all in on the Great White Hope out there, but like Brandon Miller's still a pretty damn good player as well, and we'll see what they do. Also, in a move that we pretty much expected, the news comes down shortly after the LaMelo trade that they re-sign Kobe White, who had made obviously a very big impact for this team post-trade deadline, and that was the expectation the whole time. It's funny, there was so many people. And I got to tell you, in hindsight, there's so many folks that know so much about what's going on. But I saw Kevin O'Connor, who works for, I think it's Yahoo now, a well-known NBA, we'll call him an analyst/reporter, but was like, when Christian Anderson got traded, or when Christian Anderson got drafted, you kind of figured maybe LaMelo was expected. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Nobody did. This is a very big surprise, especially when immediately when it gets reported that maybe they were shopping him around, there was another report like, he wants to stay. So this is a pretty big move. For the Minnesota side, this is where I wanted to start. I don't know, and he is a good player. I want to make this very clear. He's a very good player. He's going to be a great addition for the Charlotte Hornets. But I don't know if there is a player in the NBA right now whose perception versus quality of player is so skewed than Naz Reid. You would have thought they traded Anthony Edwards for LaMelo Ball last night, or this morning. And there was so much. There was a Spurs reporter that tweeted out and said, I don't remember watching that series against Minnesota and thinking, man, this team needs LaMelo Ball. Well, you weren't watching that series then, because first off, Naz Reid played the whole series, and they still lost that series. Second, the Timberwolves' biggest weakness was a simple double team, because every time Anthony Edwards got the ball, they would just throw two bodies at him. And then guess what? There was nobody who could dribble. And so their offense completely went to crap. This, I think, is a pretty good deal. Now, what you think about LaMelo individually is the question.
Yes.
But what they needed was a secondary ball handler, shot creator, and guy who can, playmaker, a guy who can play within space if those double teams are going to come for Anthony Edwards. LaMelo Ball will be good enough to carve up a 4-on-3 if given the opportunity and if that's how teams are going to play Ant. I don't think this makes them better than the Spurs. I don't think it makes them better than the Oklahoma City Thunder at this point. But does it address a weakness for this team? I think absolutely. And they're good enough defensively with McDaniels, with Rudy Gobert on the back end, that they're going to be still formidable enough in any series going forward.
And to that end, when you look at the odds board, the Thunder and Spurs are still 1-2 in terms of your favorites to win the NBA Finals next year, plus 250, plus 260 respectively. But Minnesota does have their odds cut down a good chunk from 30-1 to around 20-1, 22-1 on DraftKings to win an NBA title. For the Western Conference, 14-1 down to 12-1. Meanwhile, the Hornets, if you still like that future you have, maybe you could have gotten an even better number with their odds lengthening from 80-1 to 200-1 for the Larry O'Brien next year, 20-1 to 40-1 in the Eastern Conference. But here's my thing on LaMelo, because I do agree with the general concept, right? If he's on the court with Anthony Edwards, you free up some of those double teams. You can't leave either one of those guys isolated one-on-one. And yet, how often are you actually going to have LaMelo on the court, I think is the big question, given the way that his injury history has been. Yes, this past season, he played over 70 games. It's the most games that he's played in 5 years. They also limited his minutes pretty significantly, right? They were having him playing around the 30-minute mark on average compared to what they had done in the previous years, trying to ensure that he could last longer for the long haul. So I don't know if that, for me, that would be a concern. And I think on Charlotte's side of this things, you're able to sell a player at the right time, not knowing what he is health-wise in the future. Yeah,
I think those are all fair points. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out for him. But I think if LaMelo is going to be healthy, they're going to be a pretty good team. I don't think there's really any question. And remember, too, they had re-signed Ayo Dosunmu, so he's going to be part of this. I think one of my quibbles with the way that they're constructed is they're a little bit slight in terms of their size. Yes, they're big and they're long in that sense, but Jaden McDaniels sliding up to power forward, and the expectation, it's funny, I think hours before the trade was announced, or that the interest was announced that the Timberwolves and maybe Raptors were interested in LaMelo, there was a report from Minnesota that Naz Reid's going to be our starting power forward. And then, of course, he gets shipped off. So I do wonder how you're going to address the 4 spot for the most part. But, look, this team's going to be good. It's one that's addressing a weakness, and that's about it. And to your point about where the odds are, I look at this similar to that I look at Miami, which is, as they are currently priced, I don't think that's worth investing in at this point right now, especially when you're talking about the Western Conference or win the NBA Finals. Let's see what they are, and let's see if they can become a top 4 seed in the Western Conference and go from there. Maybe they'll surprise some people. Who knows?
For all the critiques that I have given on LaMelo Ball as well, worth noting he is still just one of 3 players who have averaged 20 points and 7 assists over the last 5 years. The other 2 being Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic. Pretty good company to be in.
You see what they're calling him?
What?
Hit and run.
No, but that's pretty appropriate for anybody who didn't miss the Uptown car incident that he had earlier last year. Could we be on the lookout, though, by the way, for another team to make a big swing? Interesting news last night during the second round of the draft. The Detroit Pistons trading Isaiah Stewart to Memphis for 3 future second-round picks. Why, if you're Detroit, might you make this trade for only draft picks in return? As a salary cap move, you imagine, to clear up some space in pursuit of someone who would be...
Might be Kawhi Leonard. So Kawhi is now, Kawhi Leonard and/or Jaylen Brown seem to be the next 2 big pieces that could potentially move and find new homes. The Kawhi stuff is starting to pick up some steam here over the last 12 to 24 hours. It's been reported earlier today that Kawhi's first choice is to stay with the Clippers. The Clippers have allegedly echoed that sentiment, that they feel like they can, and I'm paraphrasing, still retool enough to build a team that would be amongst the contenders in the Western Conference. I would argue that you can't, but whatever. But it also comes on the heels of some news that he wants to stay, but if he gets shipped off, he'd be willing to sign extensions with 2 teams. Because remember, he's on this 2-year deal with I think it's a player option for the last deal. I'll have to double check on this. But it would be Toronto and it would be San Antonio. In fact, I think we have this. This was Bobby Marks, a weird exchange yesterday on the draft coverage where Bobby Marks was asked about where could Kawhi land, and here's what he had to say.
Yeah, he's extension eligible. He's got 2 years left. I mean, I think there's a lot of playoff teams keeping an eye on what happens with Kawhi Leonard.
Say more. What playoff teams?
Detroit is a team.
I was like, this looks like a Bobby's not ready to say.
Maybe his former teams.
Interesting.
Okay, like, good on Malik. Like, Bobby, say something.
Yeah.
We're on live television, brother.
Say more. That's
So
a good response.
those three teams seem to be the three that were mentioned there. Windhorst mentioned Detroit. There was a report, and I think he's the one that said it on ESPN Radio today, Windhorst that is, that the Pistons, and you were going to ask about this, are going to wait for the investigation to clear. Again, remember that they're still investigating him for, is it Aspire, right? Or whatever the hell that, Aspire. Aspire, whatever it is.
Is it Aspiration? I think that's what
there it is.
Yeah.
Whatever the company was that allegedly paid him under the table for his contract with the Los Angeles Clippers, waiting for that to clear. But the Pistons, the Raptors, and the Spurs are all teams potentially that are out there. And we should also throw out that the Pistons are allegedly sniffing around LeBron James to potentially add him here. So there is a lot that still is to be decided. And also, it should be mentioned, too, bringing it back to the Hornets, because of all of this, they allegedly, I believe Bobby Marks reported, they have a $40 million trade exception that they can use.
Yeah.
So, like, that's another big deal as well, because I don't think the Hornets saw what they did last year and are like, no, we're going to scale back. There might be another move for Charlotte to make as well.
Also, because you bring up LeBron, we did see Austin Reeves sign a record 4-year, $185 million max contract with the Lakers. What might that mean in the grander scheme of things for LA as well? So lots to discuss as it comes to the NBA. We'll have Zach Cohen, VSiN NBA analyst, senior editor, join us a little bit later on the show to discuss that and more as well. But when we return, who starts, who sits for Team USA today against Turkey? We're diving into the World Cup when we return on Money Moves.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
All right, back here on Money Moves, Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel. It is the second day of the final games of
Bud
what?
Fox.
Oh, yeah.
I was told by Rotfin that I look like Bud Fox.
That's Wall Street, right? Yes.
What year did that
So
movie
it's
come
Gordon Gekko and
Never seen it.
Bud Fox, Charlie Sheen.
Never seen it.
You've never seen Wall Street?
No.
What about the
What movie?
second one
Wall
that they
Street.
did
No.
with Shia LaBeouf?
Yeah, 1987. Nope. Sorry, can't do that.
Oh,
again.
I forgot. Yeah, you have a 1990 cutoff?
Yep.
Is that right?
And
Is that the year?
Even then, 90s movies are.
Whoa. Come on.
I just watched, for some reason, GoldenEye again. Within the last month or so. Still kind of holds up.
Did
Not
it
bad.
inspire you to whip out the Nintendo 64 and get playing?
It's a good reference, and not the Nintendo 64, but it has been. I don't want to get too nerdy, but it has also been re-released on the Switch, so that was very good.
Okay.
But I would also say to that point, Nintendo 64 this weekend. None of you were invited, but the annual Mario Kart 64 tournament, in which we have a Stanley Cup-esque trophy with the winners dating back about 10 years, emblazoned upon it.
We need to get a picture of that. So that's going down this weekend?
That's Saturday.
So we can recap it on Monday.
Yes.
And get the lowdown.
Take a picture.
Are you guys going to set your own odds?
There has been odds set in years past. There was also money involved at one point as well, but then there were some shaky rules, including it wasn't that bad. It was like a $20 entry fee. But in group play, I was about to move on to the knockout stage when this chick in the group asked her boyfriend at the time to step in for the last two races. And he was a defending champion. And I was like, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And nobody listened to me. And then guess who lost out in the knockout round by 1 point because this dude came in and won the last two races.
You got hosed.
Yeah, 100%.
Got a shark.
Still don't forget it.
Speaking of the knockout round, we mentioned it off the top, but South Africa shocking South Korea yesterday 1-0, sends them to the knockout rounds. Lone goal coming in the 63rd minute to advance for the first time in the country's history. They're going to face Canada in LA on Sunday. South Korea now, meanwhile, has to sit, wait, and just hope that they can advance as one of the 8 best third-place teams. We also see Mexico walk out of group play 3-0 despite sitting multiple starters yesterday. They didn't have anything to play for, and they still dominated.
Yeah. Well, I think to your point, I think you're going to build on this for Team USA as well, but there is still a certain pride, and we've talked to a couple of people about this leading up to it, which is, hey, man, you only get 3 of these things guaranteed in terms of being on the World Cup stage. It comes every 4 years. So why not put your best foot forward and at least try to get some of these victories? And Mexico, too, like you mentioned, put some guys out there, including Guillermo Ochoa finally got out there for a little bit, too. So there is still some of that pomp and circumstance to it. But for the most part, I think all of these teams, even the ones that are eliminated or have already moved on and clinched their spot, are going to put forth a very good effort.
To round that out from yesterday, Switzerland beats Canada 2-1 to win Group B. Canada still in the round of 32 as well, as is Brazil and Morocco after they both took care of business as pretty big-sized favorites yesterday. Both teams finished with 7 points in the group stage. Brazil wins the group, though, on goal differential. They'll now get either the Netherlands or Japan in the knockout round. Results today obviously will impact that. So let's get into the 6 matches we have on deck today as the round continues. Team USA, as you mentioned, back in action for their final game of the group stage against Turkey, and they have been bet up from -105 to -115, despite the news that Mauricio Pochettino said that none of the 4 players who have yellow cards will play. So that's Chris Richards, Anthony Robinson, Folarin Balogun, I'm so bad at names, I'm sorry, and Tyler Adams. So the 4 of them will all sit out. Meanwhile, we did learn Christian Pulisic is available. He returned to full training with the team on Monday. Said yesterday that the calf feels 100%. The usage is now just the question. How long is he going to play? Is he going to start? Is he going to come off the bench? Will we see him in the second half? We don't know yet.
So what do you think? You're the one that's got a stronger opinion on this than I.
So for me, I've been looking at this Turkey team as one that had all the expectations in the world coming into the tournament and have just fallen absolutely flat on their faces in this spot. And I'm not sure, with nothing to play for in this game, knowing that they've already been eliminated, they're going to get off the mat now. Team USA, meanwhile, also having nothing to play for because they've already won the group. But the angle that I was discussing with you offline was simply the fact that the way that the Europeans kind of look at Team USA, there's a bit of a chip on their shoulder, the way they've gotten dogged by these countries in the past. The last 9 matches against European countries, they have lost. So I think there is a little bit of motivation here, even with some backups that are going to be in the fold and trying to work it out. They've performed so well. They're playing in the U.S. They're going to have this whole country at their back. How cool and how awesome of a moment would that be for Team USA to get a sweep in the group stage and advance and make this run as fun as it's been so far? I think that there actually is some motivation on the side of the U.S. and Turkey, for a team, again, that had as many expectations as they did to potentially win this group prior to the World Cup beginning, hasn't scored a single goal. So maybe a little extra, motivation for Team USA, just trying to keep them scoreless throughout the tournament.
I mean, I would buy it from a narrative standpoint for sure, and they're playing well enough when you look at them offensively that I think that would make some sense too, that they would just be able to come out here and actually get it done. So, yeah, I would say that I think you're on the right path.
I'm banking on the inferiority complex. Let's go.
I mean, there's something to it, especially when you're playing out there. I think that was part of what inspired Mexico. I mean, when you heard Guillermo Ochoa talk about it after the game, when he said, just being back out here in front of these fans and all those sort of things, those things do matter, I think, for these teams. So I think there is a sense of pride playing in front of everybody. And you've added to it. This has been a group that has widely failed on this stage. It is a team that, it's funny, it probably adds to it. Us pig-headed Americans don't really follow soccer until every 4 years. This comes around, and then we're like, these guys suck. You got to be better. So there's probably something to that as well.
They finally have true excitement and a true buzz around them. I'm sure they want to keep that going, build some momentum going into the knockout round. And also, looking at the total in this game at 2.5, I didn't end up playing the under, but that is the way that I lean. Turkey takes a lot of shots, but they don't score. And Team USA, with their star limited and some of their key pieces out, maybe not a particularly high-scoring match either. So maybe a 2-0 type of a victory for Team USA when all is said and done. Obviously, 5 more games to go today as well. Were there any that stood out to you?
As far as the World Cup concerned today, not really that many. I mean, I am going to be interested to see, because we have so many teams that are already moved on. For example, we know that Germany has clinched its spot in the round of 32, but they're big favorites here. Would expect that you're going to be able to get a victory. I think all of them, that is pretty interesting. Of the ones that carry the most weight, Japan and Sweden is probably going to be at the top of the list. Japan, the odds-on favorite, coming off of that win over Tunisia, and the way that they have been playing here, is you do wonder what you're getting from them from an offensive standpoint. Because if you looked at some of the metrics for Japan and the way that they have played, they've been a really good defensive group so far. Less than an expected goal in their 2 matches up to this point, and how they're going to handle the Swedes here, because they have not been good defensively, but their offense has been relatively solid. I think the way that this is priced, I think it makes a ton of sense that Japan would be an odds-on favorite on the 3-way line here to get it done.
Sweden, I mean, what the heck are you supposed to do with this team? What are they? They beat Tunisia 5-1 in the opener and then follow it up with a 5-1 loss to the Netherlands. So which version of Sweden are you going to get? That's a game I ultimately stayed away from. I agree with your general thought process on where Japan is as a favorite. Let's go back to the Germany game here, though, real quickly, because I like the over in this game, but I think maybe both teams to score could be a slightly cheaper way to play it. Hypothetically, in both German games so far, they beat the Ivory Coast 2-1 and beat
The Ivory Coast deserves so much better in that game.
True. And beat Curacao 7-1. Ecuador hasn't scored yet in this tournament, which I think could be a massive disappointment for them. And they're playing a Germany team that, as you said, because they've already secured the group, likely to rest some of their players as well, which could open things up a little bit more defensively. So I like Germany to win the game. I think they should outscore Ecuador, but I think Ecuador has more possibility and more potential to get on the board now. And the over in this game is juiced around -155. Both teams to score is around -140.
Okay, you gonna play it?
So it's still pretty juicy. I don't know. Maybe Germany over 1.5 goals could be another angle too.
I mean, their offense has been really good. I mean, it's not just the you talk about the Ivory Coast game. I mean, they had a lot of opportunities in that game that they didn't cash in. One of the leaders in expected goals the first 2 games of this tournament so far, just over 6 expected goals in the 2 matches that they've played. I know part of that is the first game too, but did play well against the Ivory Coast. So I do think that you're looking at an offense that is going to be primed in, again, just kind of keeping with the vibe of staying in a very good form as you move into the knockout stage for sure.
And they're a big favorite today, by the way, too. They will advance with a win or draw. Curacao can lock up second place in the group with a win today, but they're a 14-1 dog to Ivory Coast.
What was the team total?
Team total for, I don't have
Germany.
that in front of me right now.
Say,
Germany 1.5.
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry, I was going back to the Ivory Coast matchup today, where they are big favorites to ultimately close out that game today. But yeah, 1.5, and it's only -110. So maybe that's the angle if you want to get involved in that game.
For our audience and for our bosses, I am paying attention to Stormy, but we are in the top of the 9th inning against Kansas City and Tampa Bay with this no-hitter still going, and Craig Kimbrell is doing his best to potentially cough this up. He will not find the strike zone to save his life. Walked the lead batter, and now we have a 3-2 count yet again.
Okay, good segue to our next guest. We're going to have Chris Jimenez join us on the program coming up in the next segment. Former MLB catcher, does a great job as an analyst for SiriusXM MLB Network Radio. We'll talk through some of the potential angles on the card today, but do want to remind you as well, it might be summertime, but we're already looking ahead to football season and contest time here at Circa Resort and Casino, where we're broadcasting from. Entries starting at $1,000, all with no rake here at Circa Sports. That means every single dollar is in the prize pool. You get Circa Million, 18 weeks, 128 ways to win. Circa Survivor, pick one winner each week. Last man standing wins. And, of course, Grandissimo for the high rollers, $100,000 entry there. The big prize on the line. Enter in Nevada, play from anywhere. $30 million guaranteed. Visit circasports.com for more details. Again, circasports.com.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
With that, the no-hit bid ends. Carter Jensen goes deep on a 2-run shot. Thank you very much, Craig Kimbrell. And the Tampa Bay Rays, they're up 13-2, should walk out of here with a victory, but the no-hit bid collectively is going to come down and end. And this game is over as well. 13-2 officially all over with. Jonathan Von Tobel, Stormy Buonantony. Let's head out to the progressive guest line, welcoming Chris Jimenez, because I wanted to ask Chris about this as a former pro. I was curious your thoughts. Have you ever been part,
Sorry.
What are you laughing at?
No, nothing.
What are we doing here? Look at this. Already stepping on my flow. Have you been part of a lineup
feels like.
that has been no hit before?
No, thankfully, no.
Okay.
That's a huge feather in my cap. Trust me, that's something that everybody thinks about when you get to like that 6th or 7th inning. I've been close a few times, but I've also been a part of a no-hitter as a first baseman. I played first base in the minor leagues, and then I almost caught a perfect game until Kobe Lewis shook me off in the 8th inning, and we gave up a double to the Oakland Athletics.
Somehow, with that final comment, I believe that you believe it might not be your fault that that perfect game was blown.
No, it's kind of our ongoing joke between the two of us because we were just kind of in perfect sync that day. And I'm not kidding you guys. That might have been the only time he shook me off the entire day. And it was a double. And he even went in his post-game press conference and mentioned that. So it's kind of fun to talk about. And it was really close, but it just shows you how unbelievably difficult something like that is.
Absolutely. You talk about it now, but in the moment, what is that like trying to, I mean, I assume you just fully leave him alone, right? Like no one says anything to him?
Honestly, I never really have taken that approach. You know, I've always been the one that, again, they don't happen that often, but I'm going to have the same conversations because I don't want to not have a conversation and then that be the reason that, well, we didn't talk and we talked every other inning and then I go out and give up a hit. I didn't want that to be the reason. So I tried to keep it kind of status quo. Maybe I'm not joking around as much in between innings, but we're definitely having those conversations with the pitcher in between innings. And the pitching coach, the same thing. You may shorten it up just a little bit, or you kind of some guys may let those guys go. But I can tell you guys this. Every finger that I put down, because this was pre-PitchCom days when you actually had to work hard for your pitch calls, I was about as panicked as ever. And I've never second-guessed myself more times than like the 6th and 7th inning of a perfect game, because you put a 3 down and you're like kind of shaking as you're doing it. Like, is this the right one? Like, don't be the one that gets hit. But thankfully, we made it into that 8th inning, 7 and a third innings. We lost it with 1 out in the 8th inning. So I'm glad because the pressure was off at that point and we were winning the baseball game. So that's all that really mattered. But there's a lot of pressure that goes along with stuff like that.
All right, well, let's talk about pressure. Let's talk about panic a little bit more, but in the sense of maybe blowing a very strong division lead. The Braves have lost 4 straight. Yep. They just got swept by Stormy's pod squad. They're on the road against San Francisco this weekend. And the Phillies are coming strong. They've won 2 straight, and they, as we know, have been playing really good baseball. Should the Braves be worried that their division lead is down to just 4.5 games?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I mentioned this a couple weeks ago that, you know, we were talking about the Braves and it was a 10-game lead. And I knew the Phillies were playing a lot better. And to be honest with you guys, I think the injuries are catching up to the Braves. You know, you can only sustain so many major injuries to a starter, to, Ronald Acuna Jr., who isn't working his way back, but like their entire offense has really taken a downturn. But most importantly, it's been the starting rotation that has been the brunt of all these injuries. And I don't care how good your bullpen is. If your starters are struggling as much as theirs have been the last, 10, 15 days, and then the offense is kind of following along suit with that, it makes it really tough. Now, I still think this is going to be an absolute dogfight in this division, but it's just going to be a little bit closer than I think the Braves initially intended, especially early on in the season.
Someone a little far out from that dogfight in the division is the New York Metropolitans, who we were on the air for it yesterday, fall again to the Cubs. I didn't see the clips. I didn't see, this live while we were watching it, but I've seen all the clips of the Norwegian soccer fans who were doing the rowing and all the conga line. So much fun. Really cool to see the crossover. They got to see America's pastime. No, not baseball, but the Mets losing. Do they lose again today? Matthew Boyd back on the hill for the first time since his injury, taking on Freddie Peralta on the other side at his over 8 ERA. How do you see it?
Yeah, this is a tough one because I don't, as much as we want, or in the baseball community, because the Mets have the second highest payroll and they have some really extremely talented players on their team. Everybody keeps saying they're going to go on a run. They're going to go on a run. I just don't see it, honestly. I know we're talking about today in particular, and I think the Cubs sweep them because yesterday pretty much, in my opinion, took the air out of it. And then the fact that David Peterson was traded and he has to walk across the other clubhouse now, those are always fun trades to watch on TV when you have a guy that's playing that team that he got traded to. I think the Mets kind of has signaled that they're open for business. some of those contracts that they may be able to get rid of, I'm sure they're going to be trying very, very diligently this trade deadline, because I think David Stearns is under a little bit of pressure now. And I also think the Mets, you can stick a fork in them. And I'm calling it, June 25th.
One of the things that I thought was really interesting coming out of the results from yesterday, and to your point about pitching, catching, and the relationship there, Shohei Ohtani. Now, by his standards, it's a rough outing. He still pitched pretty well, but did note that he was kind of out of sync with his catcher. But what have we seen from Ohtani here recently as a pitcher that has made him look a little bit more mortal over these last few starts?
Well, I think any pitcher goes through, a moment in time in the season where things just aren't clicking, whether that's, a change in catcher because Will Smith's been out the last couple of weeks with that neck injury, and it doesn't really look like he's coming back anytime soon. But I think Shohei has set the bar so incredibly high for himself that now we look at this is what mere mortals have to deal with. Like, you gave up 4 runs in a game, and I know you're not used to that, but that's still okay in a lot of realms, maybe not Shohei's personal realm. But I do think we will see him bounce back. I think this is just one of those little blips in the radar. It's a long season. You can't be as dominant as he's been on the mound for an entire season. It's just not physically possible. So I think this is just his way of kind of coming back down to earth a little bit, but he will eventually pick it back up, in my opinion.
I want to stay out west here and ask you about what's been going on with the San Francisco Giants, because obviously Tony Vitello in general was a pretty controversial hire when he comes in. They're 33-46 now, second worst in the league. Nothing has gone right for this team, although could sweep the A's today as they continue that one. But how do you view this team and what they've tried to do? Because they've got these high-priced vets that aren't doing anything. The bullpen meltdowns, nothing seems to be working.
No, and everything that can go wrong for the Giants this year has gone wrong. And, they've obviously been in the limelight for a lot of reasons. Players not playing well, certain nights that they've had at their ballparks that have been very interesting to say the least. But the Giants, in my opinion, they need to kind of pivot. And I think Buster Posey realizes that. I'm not saying that when he signed Willy Adames, I thought that was a fantastic sign for the Giants. Truthfully, it was a player that they needed desperately, and they have had a very difficult time luring offensive players to Oracle Park because the ballpark is so difficult to hit it, right? And they've never had an issue luring pitchers there, but it's the position player side of things. And I think they may be giving up maybe a little too early on Willy Adames, but if there is any value out there for him right now, I think you have to at least explore that. Probably the same could be true with Matt Chapman. I think there's value out there. I think they would be getting pennies on the dollar if they traded Rafael Devers, just because of everything that, he's gone through with maybe his little spats with Tony Vitello. And that whole situation has been very interesting, to say the least. And Tony's kind of getting a trial by fire, which is unfortunate because, again, I don't think he's really been given a fair shake. I think from the media, from former player standpoint, when you see a guy like this that has come straight from the collegiate baseball and has zero professional experience, it's almost like guys want him to fail. And I know Buster's not going to do anything without thinking it through and, just on a whim, like, hey, we're going to change the way the game's played here. That's not Buster's style. So my guess is, that he thought this through, that he's had a lot of conversations with, multiple people. They've got a lot of veteran presence in that front office as special advisors. So to me, I don't think Tony Vitello has been given a fair shake, and I don't think it would be, Buster would be out of his mind to do something and shake it up from that perspective. I think Tony deserves a little bit of time. But from the Giants, players' perspective, if they've got value that they're willing to get back from this, I don't see why you don't try to blow this thing up and start over.
Great breakdown, Chris. Thank you for this, and thank you for pulling double duty. I know you're on Little League dad stuff right now, so thank you for taking the time.
Little League is in full effect right now, and I got 2 more weeks of it, and then I'm done. So my time in Little League is over.
There we go.
Thanks, Chris.
Chris, thank you. Chris Jimenez, always appreciate the time. On that note, we do have to step aside here real quickly. Excited to have our good friend Zach Cohen on the program next, because as we transition from baseball back to the NBA, huge NBA news day, obviously, with the LaMelo Ball trade to Minnesota. What is Zach's reaction to that, especially as it pertains to the odds movement that we have seen on the Timberwolves as well? So stick around. We're going to dive into it all when we return on Money Moves. This is VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
News of the day in the NBA, the Charlotte Hornets trading away LaMelo Ball and Josh Green to the Minnesota Timberwolves in exchange for a haul that includes Naz Reid and a lot of draft compensation. To help us break it all down and more in the association, Zach Cohen joins us here on the Progressive Guest Line, VSiN senior editor, host of Hardwood Handicappers, and a great job all season long as an NBA analyst for us. Crushed it, by the way, with your first round draft bets. Congrats. Welcome in, Zach.
Thank you. How you guys doing?
Not as good as you, apparently, with the unit share you were getting in the draft. Congrats again. But I do want to start off here getting your reaction real quickly to the LaMelo Ball trade and how you think this shakes out on both sides.
Yeah, so I thought it was a really strange trade. Like, I know that there was a tweet last night from Shams Charania saying that this might be coming, and usually when that kind of comes out of nowhere, it means the deal is coming really fast. I just thought that, things went really well for Charlotte last year. So seeing them move on from kind of their franchise player was a little crazy, but I know that there are some, plenty of, voices in that locker room and front office that were ready to move on last season. So I guess it makes sense from the perspective of you wanted to change the culture. This guy was not there, drafted by the new player, the new people you brought in to run the organization. And I think statistically, there were some numbers that showed that they were better with Kobe White on the floor than with LaMelo Ball on the floor. So they went out, they re-signed Kobe White to a big deal. I get that. It just feels like it was a really light return when you're trading a guy that I think a lot of other teams would have been interested in, but maybe they weren't.
All right, let's talk about this from the Timberwolves' perspective first and foremost, because I saw a lot of, I watched them, and I don't think that they needed LaMelo Ball. How could they trade away Naz Reid? My argument here is this was a team that did need another ball-handling guard that could facilitate, that could play make, because simple double teams were kind of nuking this offense. Even with Ayo Dosunmu out there, who did a pretty good job, I still think you needed this. Does this make them better? Does this address a weakness? What do you look at with Minnesota in regards to how they've failed the last few years and what he does for them on the court?
This definitely makes them better. And my first thought when I saw them do this is that they might be an over team next year as opposed to an under team. Yep. Like if they're going to be playing Ball with Edwards, Shannon, McDaniels at the 4 and Gobert at the 5, that's going to be a team that plays really, really fast. So I think they're going to look a lot different than what we've seen in recent years. I do kind of wonder what the order of operations was here. It reminded me of last year when my Suns made a trade for Mark Williams. Then Kaman Malawach fell to them in the draft. Did they plan to move Randall knowing that they were going to be able to swap Reid for Ball? And did they plan on being left with a hole at the power forward position? Because right now they went from a loaded front court to one that's all of a sudden pretty thin. I mean, McDaniels is going to be their small ball 4, but I kind of wonder if this team needs some size now.
Yeah, if I could add really quickly, I think one of the things is this just kind of a slightly better version of those Jazz teams that Rudy Gobert was on, right? Because they weren't really great defensively along the perimeter. They played somewhat quick, and a lot of it was just hey, Rudy, please help us out. They have Jaden McDaniels to help in terms of really good wing players that they can defend. They can throw him on it, but it does seem like they're going to take a step back defensively, and they'll play quicker too.
Yeah, I think in the playoffs, I think Edwards is a pretty solid defender once he really kind of settles in and tries really hard. But I do think that this is going to be a problem from that perspective. During the regular season, neither of these guys are going to want to go out and get stops. And I feel like if you're playing Shannon bigger minutes, you don't know what you could expect from him defensively. I would say that I don't think that they're done. I have a feeling they're going to continue trying to reshape this roster. And I just sent you a tweet. It was a joke about whether or not they can actually rescind that Ayo Dosunmu offer. But again, I don't know what they were doing when they were making these moves. Did they know they were going to be getting LaMelo Ball when they re-signed Ayo Dosunmu to a 5-year deal? I feel like this all kind of just fell in their laps, and now they have to really think about how they want to build this roster out.
Yeah, don't read that tweet on the air.
From an odds standpoint, they go down from 30-1 to around 20-1 to win an NBA title. And in the Western Conference pecking order, they do leapfrog the Denver Nuggets. But when you still have the Thunder and the Spurs at the top of this thing, even if they do make additional changes, how big of a change would it need to be for them to actually leapfrog one of those teams at the top?
I wouldn't say it needs to be massive. I just think they need some more like serious defensive players. They need another power forward. I feel like they're going to be expecting a lot from Johan Berenger, their backup center now, to be Rudy's backup center this season. I think that they could use some size at the 4 though, and I do think that the upside of this team is definitely higher than what it's been in recent years. It's just the floor is much lower. I mean, LaMelo Ball is a player that historically has struggled to stay healthy. You already have some injury concerns throughout that rotation. So I think that they have a better chance of winning the title, but they also have a better chance of the Royals just completely falling off.
All right, let's talk about the other side of this. Charlotte was a team that statistically at the start of the calendar year was one of the best in the NBA, not just the Eastern Conference. This is maybe seemingly a step back if you trade LaMelo, but what do we make of what the Hornets are going to do? Because this was a team that I thought was primed to really compete in the Eastern Conference, especially with a lot of upward mobility when you're talking about teams seeded like 8 through 3.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this is kind of disappointing from like the perspective of looking at Charlotte as an Eastern Conference contender next year. I think they definitely did a really good job of addressing like their front court needs this summer. I mean, they brought in Naz Reid. They got, Steinbach in the draft. I think they did a really good job of just kind of getting tougher and bigger. But I don't know that Christian Anderson's going to be able to play 20 to 25 minutes right away. And you're throwing a lot at Kobe White to be something that he never was in Chicago, which is, a reliable table-setting point guard. The shot making should still be there. This team's still going to be really good offensively. I just think that their ceiling is now a little bit lower as well. Maybe there's another move coming. Like this now feels like a team that you can go out and get like a Kyrie Irving at some point, and then you're really talking about an Eastern Conference contender. I just don't know if that's the plan. So these two teams, they made deals today that I really kind of having me scratching my head and just wondering what's next. It doesn't feel like the type of move you make and then you're done.
NBA analyst and VSiN senior editor Zach Cohen joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line. I know up at VSiN.com right now you have an article recapping the draft and breaking down some of the teams you thought did well or maybe didn't do so well, what that could mean for them in the future, as well as a thought on Rookie of the Year looking ahead to next year. Was there a specific player or fit that caught your attention looking ahead to next season?
Yeah, I mean, I do think Boozer is the rightful favorite in the Rookie of the Year market, and I think there's some value at plus 260. I mean, it is really early to put these bets in. Like, the guy could go out and get injured in summer league, so if you don't want to put out that money right now and wait months for it to actually become active, I understand that, but I think that Boozer is going to be the best rookie from day one. I personally think that Boozer is going to be the best of this draft class in general, but I think that in terms of just situation, that's the only guy that I really know is going to go out and be the number one option on his team next year, outside of maybe Darius Acuff. But I think it takes a little bit longer for smaller guards to kind of achieve the efficiency that they need to turn into good players. The one player that I did mention is someone that's like interesting to me a little bit further down the board is Braden Burries. It was like 60-1. If they do move on from Tyler Hero, I think it makes a lot of sense that he slides into a starting shooting guard role and looks really good from day one. I feel like one of the most underrated parts about Burries is that towards the beginning of last season with Arizona, it's like he needed to go in and try to find a way to fit in with a really good roster, and he was able to do that. But it didn't take long for him to become their best player. So if he needs to be the best player on Milwaukee next season, I think he can do it. I think that's somebody with a really high floor and ceiling.
We should note that this is our first time that we've gotten to talk to you since the Heat trade went down as well. So with Giannis now on this Miami roster, what do we make of where they stand in the Eastern Conference and where they're priced? Because I will say right now, I think pricing-wise, I don't really understand how they're getting priced.
Well, what is really confusing to me with the Eastern Conference, and I don't know how you feel about this as well, I don't know why Boston is where they are. I feel like any pricing with the Celtics near the top or at the top was kind of based on them potentially getting Giannis Antetokounmpo. If it's the same team that they're trotting out next year that we saw lose to Philadelphia in the first round, I don't get why they're there. I think the Knicks should be the favorite. I would have no problem with the Heat being number 2, but I do think there is value just because I think the Celtics belong nowhere near that top. I think Miami's going to be really good next season. I think defensively that team's going to be top 3 in the league right from the jump when you're looking at defensive rating. Offensively, I think that there's definitely some question marks, but I also don't really understand why so many people are quick to rule out Norman Powell's return. It seems pretty simple with like Andrew Wiggins signing a little bit of a cheaper deal than you're able to sign Powell with his bird rights to a longer contract. Don't know why so many people don't believe he's going to be back.
I thought the Pistons were clearing space for him, man.
Well, that does tie into the last 60 seconds with you here. I mean, the Pistons are sniffing around LeBron, Kawhi. The Raptors are allegedly sniffing around Kawhi. If Kawhi joins the Eastern Conference to either one of those two teams, what do you do with them?
I absolutely love the idea of him joining the Raptors. I was actually just working out some fake trades over here. I think that Toronto could pretty easily make the math work with Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, and Jacoby Walter. Throw in like 2 unprotected firsts, and the Clippers are getting some young players, some picks. I think that's a really good trade for both. And if you're the Raptors, I think if you can get Kawhi without trading Colin Murray-Boyles, that's a really, really good deal. So I think Toronto has the potential to become an Eastern Conference favorite.
Zach, great stuff as always. Again, congrats on the success of the draft. Just a reminder, every year, guys, you need to be following Zach with what he's putting out there. Thank you for this.
Thank you.
Zach Cohen, check out Hardwood Handicappers wherever you get your podcast as well. And again, that article up live at vsin.com. What are you laughing at?
There's a Minnesota-based political reporter that has tweeted out, he's a big Timberwolves fan, said, oh my gosh, I need to take a walk about the trade for LaMelo Ball. To which somebody responded, get those out of your system because you won't be doing this when LaMelo's in town.
Okay. We need to step aside here. Stick around. Next on Money Moves, Terrion Arnold is giving a whole new meaning to the term lockdown corner. We'll discuss that and the Lions when we return on Money Moves.